how many folks do you know, friends and family, that have cryptocurrency or use it or even really know about it? And he pointed at himself. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome everyone to our first weekly recap here at the Defiant. We are with most of our print team, so this is a first for the YouTube channel.
Hey everyone, I'm YYC Trader. I am the head of news at the Defiant.
I'm Ed Robinson. I'm a contributing editor at the Defiant.
I'm Owen Furneaux, a reporter at the Defiant.
I'm Aleks Gilbert. I'm also a reporter at the Defiant.
All-star team over here. It's been 6 weeks since the merge, so it's about time to take stock of how Ethereum's shift to proof of stake is going. And for the first time, ETH issuance has gone negative. So the promise of ultrasound money and ETH being deflationary is apparently coming true. But what hasn't been going so well on the Ethereum network is that right now more than half of Ethereum blocks are censoring wallets sanctioned by OFAC. And speaking of layer ones, a new ETH killer is on the loose, or in this case, a Solana killer. Aptos launched this week, and we'll get into why that was so controversial. On the regulatory front, there's a new draft of this bill, which would make the CFTC oversee crypto spot trading. On the other hand, SBF, the FTX founder, published his take on what crypto regulation should look like. And he went from basically kind of crypto superhero to villain in one stroke because of it. And on the markets, we pretty much moved sideways. But I think one kind of funny, interesting thing that happened was that this meme coin actually caused Uniswap trading activity to jump to the highest in over a year. On the tech front, the CK rollup race is heating up, and Aave released details on its GHO stablecoin. And then finally, we had a slew of adoption and integrations announcements. So, as always, lots happening this week. The Defiant was there covering all the big stories with our DeFi angle and spin to things. So, we'll get into the biggest ones now. And Aleks, do you want to tell us more about this Ethereum censoring blocks story?
Sure. So it's been more than 2 months now since the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned crypto privacy protocol, Tornado Cash. It was a big move. There was a huge uproar in the DeFi community. Now that 2 months have passed, we can see that more than half of the blocks on Ethereum appear to be excluding transactions from wallets that have been sanctioned by the Treasury Department, according to data from MEV Watch. Now, there's some debate within the community as to how serious this really is. Martin Kopelman, who co-founded Gnosis, described the statistic as a sad milestone in censorship for Ethereum. Other folks have been saying that really this isn't all that bad just yet, because even though half of the blocks are excluding these transactions, the blocks that aren't are the ones that get essentially that these transactions do make their way onto the chain, right? That for the most part, sanctioned wallets are still able to transact despite the fact that some of the blocks that are being put together aren't including them. Nevertheless, the trend is disturbing. Crypto influencer and investor Eric Wall was at Devcon last week. It's the biggest conference in Ethereum, and he gave a speech that one of the event's organizers said might be looked back on as the most important there. And Wall was, in a nutshell, trying to galvanize the Ethereum community to take action before it's too late, saying that while they have to look for technical solutions to this encroaching censorship threat, they also have to be ready to take a stand as a community and kind of burn the whole thing down if it seems as though really, there is no technical workaround. But that wasn't the only layer one news this week. I understand that Owen's got something to say about Aptos, the quote unquote Solana killer that's out in the wild now. So I'll let Owen take it away.
Nice. All right. So as you may or may not have seen on the internet, Aptos launched its mainnet, accompanied by a blog post and also an airdrop to some people who did some things, I think, which was running a validator and maybe minting an NFT on a testnet. But anyways, the most notable thing was that people were pretty angry about it, and they just didn't seem very stoked. And especially considering that, you know, all the big centralized names, so Binance, FTX, Coinbase, all indicated that they would start trading before even the tokenomics of Aptos's APT token were pushed into the world. So people were rubbed a little wrong that way. Obviously, the exchanges want to get volume because they make a percentage on that. So people were angry. Aptos quickly put out a tokenomics paper, which other people weren't super stoked by, for the details about what the community, when they say the word community, what that actually means. And Aptos also didn't have a pre-sale, which kind of differs from Ethereum, and, I think most of the other layer ones outside of Solana had somewhat significant pre-sales to the degree of maybe 20%, at least. So that was the main thing. I mean, it also comes with the backdrop of Aptos raising, I think, $350 million before going live, which was a tough pill to swallow when, Ethereum, I mean, not Ethereum, but all of crypto is looking for further adoption. And it doesn't feel like we quite need another layer one, in that we need people to start using blockchains. We don't need another one. We don't necessarily need more block space. It seemed like the overwhelming opinion coming out of everyone, and everyone has just seen so many layer ones come out in like 2017 and 2018. Like one guy was saying last year, he was like, the door is shut for layer ones. That was Manib of Stacks. So yeah, it's just really tough to launch into a bear market and to have taken a bunch of money from all the top VCs. So there was a lot of backlash, and Ryan Watkins of Masari said that he felt like, yeah, okay, people are hyped, or some people are hyped, but that Aptos is going to have to deliver on its promise in the way that all other blockchains do. And it's very easy to promote your technical breakthroughs, but push comes to shove, you're out in the wild and the market speaks for itself. And if users use your chain, that's ultimately what people are looking for. So that's kind of the high level overview of what went on with Aptos. Yeah,
it was super interesting to see the reaction to yet another layer one making all these outlandish promises. And I think it just, the hype in the middle of the bear market, the $350 million raised from big VCs, the fact that it didn't seem to give a lot of opportunity for just like the broader community to participate. The fact that, there was some question about how centralized validators were. So I think, people, it seemed like at least crypto Twitter is just tired of the layer one ETH killer or, whatever killer narrative. Another big story or just narrative this week was on regulation. Aleks did a good job in covering just rounding up the main threads there, but I think basically there's this like I said, this draft bill that's been leaked, the DCCPA. And then SBF coming out with his take on crypto regulation. So can you walk us through both of those?
Sure. So the DCCPA digital, I'm going to screw it up. The DCCPA, whatever that stands for.
Digital Commodities Consumer Protection Act. There we go.
There you go. Perfect. That's been out there for a little while. There was actually a hearing on this back in September that Jake Chervinsky, he's prominent in crypto Twitter. He's the head of policy at the Blockchain Alliance, a lobbying group. He kind of broke it down back in September. But folks have been talking about it this week, and I wasn't really sure why at first. No new version had come out when the chatter kind of kicked back up at the beginning of the week. But people were accusing crypto mogul Sam Bankman-Fried, he's the head of FTX for anybody who doesn't know. They were accusing Bankman-Fried of secretly supporting this bill. And the issue here is that the bill as written would, quote unquote, kill DeFi. So Chervinsky back in September had said he doesn't think that is the intention of the bill, but as written, that would be the unintended consequence because, among other things, it would essentially force intervention by people into DeFi protocols in order to get them to comply with certain things that the law would require of them, right? I mean, when you do that, then it's not really DeFi anymore, right? So, I mean, that's one of a couple issues that folks had with the bill. But a new draft version of the bill was released this week by crypto attorney Gabriel Shapiro. Anybody who's interested has the opportunity to look through it. I think it's about 30, 40 pages. A couple things have been changed, but overall the sentiment is still super, super negative on this. The provisions that would, again, kill DeFi, I think, remain, at least as far as I can tell, just hearing the chatter about it, that hasn't changed.
So I was just recording with Gabriel Shapiro yesterday for next week's podcast, so everyone should stay tuned for that one. But it seems like this annotated latest version that was leaked is looking a bit better for DeFi than the previous version. And that's because software developers are being considered as separate entities from platforms that are transacting digital assets. So before there was a big concern because this bill seemed to imply that anyone building in DeFi would have to register as basically like a commodities broker or exchange operator. Now this version of the bill that Gabriel leaked changes that. And adds kind of this separation for, that recognizes that developing software is not the same as, running a commodities exchange. But, I mean, the caveat there is that we don't know whether this is, the latest version, whether it's being supported, whether this is the version that's going to go through. So, it's kind of unclear how positive this new draft is for the industry. As
people have been debating this bill and the merits of it, they've been accusing Bankman-Fried of FTX of secretly supporting it and of trying to thereby kill DeFi and kind of cement his status at the center of the crypto universe, because FTX is, one of the couple major on-off ramps to the cryptoverse, right? While that was happening, he published a blog post on FTX's website detailing his recommendations for how this industry could self-regulate as it waits for government action and government regulations. It's a long blog post. There are a lot of things in it, but the thing that really got folks angry was a suggestion that DeFi protocols build into themselves a form of government compliance. And so the example he gave, which is, kind of ties back into that Tornado Cash sanction by the Treasury Department, would be that somebody, whether it be the government or a trusted third party, maintains a list of sanctioned addresses, and that protocols have built into them a means of checking this list to make sure that they aren't allowing any of those sanctioned addresses to use the protocol as a customer and to transfer funds or anything like that, right? So, I mean, that really upset a lot of folks in DeFi, because it goes against that fundamental concept of decentralized finance as this permissionless thing that anybody can use, really, no matter what. And he was just pilloried on social media for suggesting this. And to be fair, he had put these suggestions forward as a way to kind of kick off conversation around how the industry might be able to self-regulate, and was willing to concede that some of the things he said might have been phrased poorly, that that he isn't necessarily right about what the best way to approach any of this stuff is. So at least in that regard, he succeeded, right? He started a debate, and debate is still raging today, Friday afternoon. But it'll be something that'll be really interesting to keep a close eye on, because at the end of the day, he's one of the wealthiest people in crypto. He's got a bunch of lobbyists in DC. They're talking to politicians. Anything that he suggests could well find its way into policy. Given this direct line he and others, to be clear, have been trying to forge with lawmakers.
It is really interesting to see him stake out this territory, because self-regulatory organizations are a staple of the traditional finance world. And we know that Sam Bankman-Fried comes out of TradFi, though those are his roots. So for him to say, hey, we need to establish something that'll be self-regulatory before the government does that for us, is a time-honored practice when it comes to Wall Street and the financial industry, but it butts right into the strategy that many crypto/DeFi players are adopting. When you look at, for example, the Coin Center suit that was brought against the U.S. Treasury Department challenging its authority to sanction addresses on Tornado Cash, the thesis at the heart of its argument was you cannot regulate code. You cannot. It's not a person. It's not a corporate entity. The law doesn't allow for this. And then you saw amicus briefs that have been filed in recent lawsuits involving JokeDAO. Now, that was an action brought by the Commodity Futures Trade Commission, which regulates derivatives. And they're making the same argument as Coin Center. They're kind of saying, hey, regulators, you need to really do your homework here and decide how you're going to come into this space, because you can't regulate code. So SBF is taking a traditional position in trying to develop some kind of model for regulation. But a lot of other counterparts in the crypto space are saying, no, there has to be bespoke regulation to truly address the unique properties of cryptocurrency, which are steeped in code. So, Aleks, I think you're absolutely right. This is an important space to watch, because that argument, unless SBF totally backs down, I doubt he will. But if he continues to go forward, you're going to get these two very different strategies for dealing with Washington.
Yeah, it's a huge story. Just this ongoing narrative on and question on how crypto and DeFi will be finally regulated in the US. And there's all these different bodies kind of fighting over who has a bigger ownership stake in this new industry. So there's a lot of politics going on behind the scenes, whether it's the SEC or the CFTC, who will have more oversight over the industry. But yeah, I think self-regulation is something that I don't think DeFi or crypto is opposed to. I think it's kind of what was proposed in Sam Bankman-Fried's post that people were opposed to, and I think just the main thing, having all transactions comply with OFAC, to me, just this is my personal opinion, it just doesn't make any sense. Crypto is a global, financial industry. You can't expect for every transaction to comply with US law. And it just gives the U.S. government such a huge, stake and just oversight over the entire crypto industry to be able to dictate what wallets can and can't transact in what's supposed to be a permissionless system. So I think that's just like a deal breaker for most people in this space to kind of sanction and censor transactions from the start, So anyways, this is going to be an ongoing debate and discussion that we will, of course, be covering here in the Defiant. So everyone should stay tuned and see how this develops. And now let's hear a quick word from our sponsor who makes these videos possible. Singularity DAO is a decentralized portfolio management protocol that manages crypto assets using AI and advanced data analysis. Dynasets are non-custodial vaults of tokens created to outperform holding popular assets such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. During the previous trading window, Dynasets outperformed their underlying assets by more than 50%, with users of DynETH doubling their Ethereum holdings. Dynaset contribution window is open now and will close in a few days. Use referral code Defiant when depositing to enter a prize draw of 500 SDAO for 5 winners and benefit from their advanced trading strategies. Now to a lighter topic, YYC, I'd love you to kind of run us down this new token that's been shaking up the market this week.
Sure. So Vitalik tweeted in jest last week that someone should create a protocol called because it would be really easy for their supporters to shill, because you could mention when referring to pretty much anything, right? And well, of course, crypto being crypto, nearly 24 of those coins named have been trading over the last few days on Ethereum and Binance chain. And the most prominent one out of those started off at around 0.2 cents and rallied all the way up to 4 cents yesterday before pulling back, being cut in half essentially, and back to 2 cents. And I think even though the market's been sort of boring for the last couple of months, I mean, we've been range bound in terms of the major tokens, people want something to play with, right? And it's these meme coins that have caught Degen's interest. And as a result, activity on Uniswap has spiked. We crossed 200,000 transactions yesterday for the first time since June 2021, almost a year and a half. And daily users have also crossed 30,000 for the first time since March. So despite not much activity in the broader crypto space, these meme coins have been heating up. And today, actually, there's a new one that's overtaken and it's called DAI.
Oh, wow.
DIE, literally. So this one has done 12,000 transactions today, and it's up nearly 300% in the last day. This one's also spawned by a Vitalik tweet, which I haven't been able to find, or it might just be the project founders, just tacking on to and coming out with an alternative.
Where did it come from? Like DAI token? Is that
Yeah, the token's actually called DAI, and it's all over CT with memes, etc.
Right. Okay, so I guess memes are always around even in bear markets, sparking activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And these meme coins have actually pushed ETH into deflationary territory. The trend kicked off with Zen Crypto, which was this free mint a couple of weeks ago. Like you could mint these tokens and then lock them up to earn rewards down the line. I mean, Zen is now essentially worthless, but the baton has been picked up by these meme coins. So first we had now we have DAI, and we also have World Cup Inu, which is, with the World Cup around the corner, I guess someone thought it would be a good idea to start a coin. And most of you guys who are listening to this probably are too old to remember Ronaldinho, but he was a star of the 2002 World Cup. And he's been called out on Twitter for promoting this coin. He's been facing bankruptcy proceedings back home, so I guess he needs some extra cash.
Oh my God! Okay, that's hilarious. I mean, I wish that it was more kind of worthy, kind of, I don't know, world-changing applications, democratizing finance, what's bringing ETH to this, to become deflationary instead of meme coins. But, it is what it is in this market. What's next? We have, we had a few tech announcements and developments this week. The CK rollup race is heating up. So Polygon recently announced its CK rollup. I think it was in Devcon they made the announcement. Then Uniswap said that it is deploying on zksync, one of the few CK rollups that are coming live. And this technology is supposed to bring scaling to Ethereum, so it has just a lot of promise and potential. And it's right now all eyes are on layer 2s and rollups, and especially CK rollups. And then another more technical news that happened is that Aave released details on its GHO stablecoin. This is a over-collateralized stablecoin pegged to the US dollar. It's supposed to keep its peg with arbitrage. So we'll see how it goes. I think the market has maybe soured a little bit on arbitrage based and decentralized stablecoins. But yeah, we'll see whether Aave can pull this off. And we also had a bunch of integrations and adoption announcements. Ed, do you want to walk us through kind of all the different news that came out of on that front?
Sure, Cami. Very interesting month, considering we're still in a bear market. There's a lot of challenges out in the space, and yet we saw a flurry of traditional finance and fintech players embracing crypto in some way, shape, or form this month. Fidelity is the big one. Fidelity, of course, is the asset management giant. It's got $4.5 trillion in assets. It runs a lot of 401k plans. It's about as foundational as you can get when it comes to traditional finance. But its CEO, Abigail Johnson, has been a long-time fan of crypto. I mean, she had the cafeteria at Fidelity accepting Bitcoin for lunch, 5 years ago. So she's been angling very much into the space, and it's really interesting that she's picked this month to launch an Ethereum product. They're going to be doing Ethereum trading and a custody service for institutional clients, and that's beginning at the end of the month. And of course, that's linked to the merge, which took place about 6 weeks ago. That was Ethereum's shift to a proof of stake consensus, which made it very environmentally clean, is changing the economics of the token itself. It's an improved Ethereum. That's been very attractive to institutional investors. There's a lot of facets to that they're attracted to, and clearly Fidelity would not be rolling out an offering like this unless it was looking ahead to the next cycle, the next bull cycle, and saying, we want to plant the flag. We want to be there when crypto investing surges again. And by institutions, that means money management firms, hedge funds, trading firms, etc. Fidelity, though, wasn't the only one. There was also the largest fintech in Latin America, Nubank. It's going to launch a token on Polygon. Nubank has 70 million users. It's based in Sao Paulo. And it's launching its own chain and a token with Polygon technology. It's going to airdrop its own token called New Coins, and that's scheduled for the first half of 2023. We also saw another fintech giant, Plaid, jumped into Web3. Aleks filed a story on that right at the end of the week. It's a software maker, Plaid. It's kind of one of the behind the scenes fintech players, and it does all of that important back office work in linking bank accounts and credit cards with applications like Venmo. And for it to jump into Web3 is pretty significant. Of course, other payment services have been very pro-crypto for some time, including PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard. Both those systems have been embracing crypto, but Plaid is doing a very Web3 tailored offering. So again, that comes at the same time. And there's another one, N26, which is a big European neobank, which means it's a digital bank. And they too have unveiled a Web3 crypto strategy. And bigger players like Robinhood, Reddit, Stripe, they've all been launching and involved in crypto and are kind of doubling down on their capacity in the space as well. So the upshot of all of this is that you've got a number of players that are integrating blockchain technology either into traditional offerings for their customers or they're offering crypto products themselves. And it's hard not to see all of this as a bullish signal looking ahead at when the cycle turns, because eventually it will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're pretty much seeing all the biggest players in TradFi, in fintech, in social media with Reddit and Twitter and Meta and like Instagram, like they've all in some way or another adopted crypto, like whether it's NFT profiles or like adding them to their payment rails or offering them as a product for their clients and investors. We're starting to really see crypto seep into everything. So I think kind of the ground is being planted for this next bull run, so that when we have this new wave of users coming in, all of these giants are kind of ready with their crypto offering. Aleks was at Devcon last week in Colombia, and this week he reported on what adoption looks like in that South American country.
The Ethereum Foundation was the organizer of Devcon, and they chose Bogota, Colombia. They say that it had nothing to do with Bogota in itself or Colombia. It was really Latin America that they chose, and that Bogota happened to have the best venue, that Colombia happened to have the most convenient visa regime for international travelers. And that venue is fantastic. I mean, it's huge. It is brand new. It's nice. And when you pack it out with 6,000 plus developers in the Ethereum ecosystem, many of whom haven't had a chance to see each other since the last Devcon back in 2019, I mean, you can really get swept up in all of the grand talk about how Ethereum is going to change the world, right? Just outside the venue, you've got folks warning the Devcon attendees, don't walk around with your phone out because somebody on a motorbike might snatch it out of your hands. I mean, there's a bit of a contrast there. I don't mean to suggest that Bogota wasn't a lovely city, but I was curious what Ethereum meant to regular Colombians, or maybe how they were using it, what the level of adoption was in the country. I had a really interesting interview with the head of business development at Reserve. It's a stablecoin protocol and also a crypto mobile application developer that has a lot of customers in Latin America. And he told me that there are three primary ways that folks in Colombia use cryptocurrencies. The first is just to move money across borders. Even though there is no currency restriction in Colombia like you might find in other countries, the banking system is just slow moving. The word he used was oligopolic, right? And it's just, it's easier, it's faster to use stable coins and other cryptocurrencies to get money from Colombia to, say, Venezuela. There's a lot of Venezuelan people in Colombia, especially crypto savvy folks, because of the situation there, the political and economic instability. The second most common use case is, and this one's really interesting, it's kind of like cross-border arbitrage. So you can actually buy USDT, Tether, the stable coin pegged to the US dollar, for less than $1 in Colombia. And the reasons for that are, as far as I'm aware, speculative at this point. Nobody's been able to give me a solid answer as to why that's the case. But nevertheless, if you buy it on the cheap in Colombia, but then sell it for its supposed true value of $1 elsewhere in most commonly the United States, and then wire that money back to Colombia, exchange it to pesos, and then do it all over again, right? It's that arbitrage opportunity over time will net you a really handsome profit. And now the spread, right, the kind of difference in the price between USDT and Colombia and the United States has narrowed over the years. It used to be like 10%. Now it's between 2 and 5%, depending on the exchange rate on any given day. But there's a lot of money that's kind of flowing in that way. And then at the very back, a distant third, you've got just regular retail adoption like you see in other countries. I spoke to a trio of Colombian university students who had gone to one of the Devcon side events. And at the side event, folks there were onboarding locals into Web3, teaching them how to create a wallet, how to transfer tokens, how to bridge tokens, stuff like that. And these students, I asked one of them, so how many folks do you know, friends and family, that have cryptocurrency or use it or even really know about it? And he pointed at himself, 1, 2, 3 at his friends, and then they all laughed because they were the only ones that they knew that cared about this stuff. And that there are more examples of this, but that kind of just goes to show that it has yet to penetrate the Colombian community the way it has in places where it's not just something that people who are curious or who want to move money around might be using, but that folks actually need in places like Venezuela or Argentina.
Yeah, I edited that story. Really enjoyed editing that piece, Aleks. And one of the upshots for me was just how vital it is when it comes to adoption and mass adoption, which is, of course, is instrumental in crypto, that it has to be done from the grassroots. It's got to be done. The utility has to be self-evident so that people really can see an immediate improvement in their lives in some way, shape, or form. And I think your reporting really demonstrated that. And it kind of serves almost as an object lesson at top-down approaches to crypto. And I guess by that, I'm thinking of the experiment in El Salvador and how badly that's gone. It's got to be grassroots, right? I mean, it's got to be, these are tools. They're going to improve your lives. They get you around the sclerotic, banking systems that frequently they just don't innovate. And, but you can't do it from the top down. You can't do it by decree. And I think your reporting really showed that.
I mean, it's tough if these protocols are making money on financial throughput, right? It's like there's a way where you want to go where the money is, right? If you're taking percentages, I mean, if a protocol is making money at all. So definitely, I mean, yeah, it's much easier, I think, to devise businesses for people who already have money relative to people who maybe have less. I mean, they have less to give to another protocol. So I'm just agreeing with you, Ed, that it's a tough nut to crack, though, and it's hard for people when there is all this easy money on the line, especially in 2021, like just with token unlocks. It's a difficult nut to crack, and something that crypto struggled with for a long time. Yeah, no,
that's a great point, Owen. That I think it's a reason why a lot of innovation is happening. Where the money is. It's happening in the US, it's happening in Europe, and really kind of the places where crypto can have like life-changing impact, which is developing nations, are somewhat forgotten, I think, by a lot of these protocols and developers. I think the fact that a lot of DeFi is happening on Ethereum, and we know how expensive Ethereum gets when there's activity, also makes DeFi kind of prohibitively expensive for a lot of these users. So I think nothing that can't be solved with tech innovations that we're seeing with the layer 2s, etc. But there's still a long ways to go, especially with kind of ease of use of these bridges and layer 2s and so on. So, but it's like going to Argentina and Rio this year. I was like at conferences there, and then Devcon in Bogota. You kind of see that there is adoption happening, especially in Argentina. Like it's like crypto's already mainstream there. So I think I think it's really encouraging to see where that trend is going, even though if it has been slower to develop than in the kind of more richer nations. But Owen, I'd love for you to also talk about your feature on JokeDAO.
Sure. Oh, just one last point on that, just while we're talking about it. And I also feel like maybe like the alpha is kind of going away in terms of certain kind of crypto games that you're playing. So I feel like also you might just see like maybe there were a lot of easy money games or certain money games being played in the past 2-3 years, but I think maybe as those stop working, especially like under collateralized lending has kind of been done, it's like there might just be a push to do unsecured lending because there's so much money on the sidelines that people don't have enough to borrow against the money they have, but they can take out loans. So I just think it's maybe like we're pushing out the adoption curve, and that'll manifest in different ways. So anyways, just closing that. So, yes. So I wrote an article about a protocol called JokeDAO. Kind of fond of it. I kept my journalistic integrity, but I am fond of it as far as it's not explicitly a financial tool and doesn't really have. They do have a joke token, which I touched on maybe briefly, if at all. But their main function is as a governance tool, and it sounds very similar to things we already have. Like we have Snapshot, where you're voting yes, no on various governance proposals. But one of JokeDAO's innovations is that it involves airdropping tokens specifically for a contest. So how Snapshot works is usually it's token gated, so members of a community have tokens and they can vote on snapshots that the core team puts up. And so JokeDAO kind of flips that on its head in that anyone can post a contest, which is just like, which can be anything, like who should win this grant, what direction should our protocol, allocate, our resources on a human capital level. So any kind of decision, who should we have on a podcast? But Maker used it to say, like, what do we need to focus on in terms of Rune, the founder's end game? Like, which aspect of that post he put out, which should we clarify? So the contest can have all different kind of topics, which the generalizability is exciting. And then what happens is that anyone who posts the contest can actually airdrop the tokens which can surface solutions to a given contest. So that could be that's people saying, looking at Rune's topic or Rune's post and saying, hey, I think we need to focus on MetaDAOs, which they ended up doing, or I think we need to focus on real world assets. So you can airdrop, people can submit, add submissions to the contest, and then you airdrop another set of tokens, and which allows people to vote on what they think the best submission was. So it sounds complicated, and I think if you look at the interface, you can get into it. But I think it's exciting because anyone who's tried to cover governance as a journalist, that like you're wading through these governance forums, and even the most sophisticated DAOs like Maker, it's still pretty complicated to catch up, and they know that. They know it's hard to just jump into Maker and understand where the conversations are, and it's hard for anyone except people who are actually working full time in the DAO. So I think it's really interesting as far as a way of maybe organizing those conversations and allowing the community to steer the conversations, because the tokens can be airdropped and there isn't quite a financial aspect to it. That I think it's going to be exciting to see whether JokeDAO pulls off ways to kind of steer DAOs from a community oriented aspect. And I mean, it sounds vague, it sounds idealistic, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, if you guys want to ask questions, I mean, I know it's not the clearest in the world, but yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I think we should try using it at some point. I got to think of a way to like decide what content we should use.
Yeah, maybe we can test it out. I think, there's the whole kind of governance space is still so, I think, it hasn't been fully developed. Like it's really early, and it's clear that we're not there yet in terms of what works, right? Like I think DAOs have struggled to with participation, with just efficiencies, with delivering on timelines, and just like people management. It's already hard to manage people in a centralized organization. I mean, imagine a DAO with just anons everywhere, and no fixed roles, and no hierarchy. And like decisions being made by token holders. It's chaos. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to do there, and maybe kind of gamification works and gets people more excited, and it's just more like a more intuitive way of organizing communities. So definitely kind of a worthy experiment. And I like your idea of us actually testing it out.
Yeah, if we find our readers, I mean, the big thing is you have to have people's wallets, right? But if you have wallet addresses, we could airdrop either set of tokens to people and see if they want certain things out of us. So it'd be interesting.
Nice. That'd be cool. Yeah. And you touched a little bit on kind of what Maker is doing with its governance and kind of its internal soul searching phase that it's going through, and Sam, who is actually based in Australia, so he can't make these calls unfortunately, but he's been covering Maker very closely, and Ed, I believe you edited this story, so maybe you can kind of wrap up this call with this final feature that is just one more iteration of our coverage on Maker, which I'm biased, but I think has been pretty spot on.
Yeah, no, MakerDAO is one of the most influential platforms in DeFi, and so it's been fascinating to see the crucible that it's been undergoing as it wrestles with this governance problem that Owen reported on through JokeDAO. So Maker is basically trying to figure out how to balance being a cooperative and with an egalitarian ethos. People get to vote on the direction that it takes, both strategically, in terms of producing revenue, et cetera, but also improve efficiency. So how do you balance democracy and efficiency? That's kind of at the heart of the DAO issue. And Maker, to its credit, has really gone after this problem. And the latest issue that came up was a really dramatic proposal to essentially break up this DeFi lending platform, which produces the stablecoin DAI, which is used extensively through DeFi, and to break it up into what would be called MetaDAOs. So Sam Hague, who's been covering this for us, he delved deep into the community to try and understand what's driving this. And essentially, it stems from co-founder Rune Christensen, who is, one of the most outspoken founders in DeFi. And Rune he no longer leads Maker, but he is an influential voice in the community. And he has two main concerns. Number one, he wants it to generate revenue and become a self-sustaining platform business. And two, he's very worried about regulatory risk, especially after the Tornado Cash incident. So he wants to protect Maker from any vulnerabilities it may have on that. So a lot of the proposals that he's coming up with are aimed at those two goals. He feels that by breaking up a lot of the operations of Maker and letting all of these tinier DAOs decide how they would operate, how they would decide on their strategy going forward. Each would have its own token, of course, because that's how people vote in these. That's his idea, and he's getting a lot of pushback. Sam has reported that there's 2 main units inside Maker that are made up of equally influential members in the community, and they're pushing back hard on this and saying, no, that's not the way that we need to go forward. And it's still very much up in the air because, like everything in Maker, it's subject to voting. So the voting is taking place as we speak. Next week, we should see some results on this. I'm sure Sam will be weighing in with whatever the results of those are. But stepping back, looking at Maker is, in a sense, looking at the canary in the coal mine when it comes to solving the governance riddle inside DeFi. And I just can't wait to see what the next development is.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think you're right that Maker has so far been kind of spearheading a DeFi organization. Like they were one of the first DeFi protocols. They started with this structure of being a SUG-based foundation running, like nonprofit, running a protocol. And then others kind of followed this model, and this model is kind of, itself like goes after the Ethereum model. But then they decided to dissolve the foundation and become just like a fully decentralized DAO with these core units serving as essentially business units, taking over the foundation's functions. And now it looks like Rune wants to take things even further and say that each instead of having one DAO, it needs to be like a few separate DAOs. I don't know. I think it's really fascinating.
I mean, you can see why he's facing resistance, because his plan.
It sounds really
would
complicated.
Undoubtedly create more complexity.
Yeah.
So you're taking an organization that is already fraught with complexity, and you would just be multiplying the complexity. So but on the other hand, I mean, he is so afraid that, the feds at Washington could come in and say, oh, some of your addresses are compromised, you have this regulatory risk, and they would shut down a core unit, and then the whole thing kind of falls apart. And he's written extensively about that, and Sam has covered his views on that in the Defiant, and he does have support. I mean, there are people in the community who say, you know what, Rune knows what he's talking about. So it's just a fascinating kind of debate taking place.
Yeah, and you need to kind of take it in the context of what we mentioned before, like the CFTC coming after a DAO for the first time ever with UkiDAO. UkiDAO was stems from the BCX protocol from back in early days in DeFi. And they came after a DAO, and this understanding that if you're decentralized and you're run by token holders and it's a smart contracts based platform, that regulators can't come after you, but in the end they did. So I think this is just like the backdrop that and just like this looming thread that Rune is dealing with.
So that's right.
So I mean, it's been a week, like every week, really, just really interesting developments all over DeFi. One final development that I wanted to highlight. Oh, this was also an interesting story, but I won't get into it. This house that sold on this NFT platform. But what I really wanted to highlight was we have a new market data section. So you guys here should check it out, market data, and it'll give you a look at our charts from the Defiant Terminal. So here's kind of one place where you can see just like the latest on TVL, DEX metrics, liquidations, and this is actually how we got the idea for the token story, because at first it seemed like this joke, but then when we saw that it was actually having a real market effect on Uniswap users and trades, is when we decided to cover it. So here's our own market data with the Defiant Terminal is what alerted us to this. So yeah, just check it out. It's updated real time. And it's just like a handy place where you can get all these interesting charts. And a reminder that this is all, these are all charts that you can build yourself. So they're not static. They're actually, interactive charts that anyone can build with our charting tool. So play around with it. I'm such a data geek that I love this stuff, but we have a bunch of metrics, and it's just, it's super easy to go here and just, analyze what's going on in DeFi. Get your alpha that nobody else is looking at, because really nobody can give you this kind of just granular and just easy access to on-chain data. So yeah, that's it from us, and stay tuned. We're here every day covering DeFi in the best way possible with these guys.